He was raised to life, and he promises us that we can be raised to life from death. But the life that he wants to raise us to is not the life that we choose. It's the life he gives. He leaves that place and he goes out of the city to Bethany. He spent the night there. It says early in the morning as he was returning to the city, so he got up to go back into Jerusalem. He was hungry. Isn't it nice to know that Jesus, fully God, is also fully human? Woken up in the morning, you haven't had your breakfast yet, he needs something. Seeing a lone fig tree by the road, he went up to it and found nothing on it except leaves. And he said to it, "May no fruit ever come from you again." And at once the fig tree withered. When the disciples saw it, they were amazed and said, "How did the fig tree wither so quickly?" He explains to them how this happened and how it's faith and how God has a desire for what we do. But I want you to know the reason that it happened also plays back into the story of the fig tree that we found out that happened before Jesus came to Jerusalem, where he tells his disciples that the purpose of a fig tree is to produce figs. Now that sounds obvious, right? Except I want you to know that there are some of us that have experienced people using things for a purpose other than what they were intended for. I had a family near us when I was growing up. They had apple trees in their yard. And they thought the apple trees were beautiful. And they loved the blossoms that would come on the apple trees and all that kind of stuff. But their family didn't like apples. And in fact, their family would get really annoyed when those apples would get so ripe and they would fall to the ground. And then, they're trying to push mow their yard and they're making applesauce that sprays on the side of the house and all that kind of thing because they didn't want to go through and pick them all up and everything. And so it created this issue. And so they would actually have me come over and pick as many apples as I could possibly pick. And I'd take them to the house and we'd take them to church. We'd give them away to people there. We'd do all that kind of stuff. Because see, there was a purpose that tree was created for. That tree was created to produce apples. Apples can bring nourishment to people. Apples can provide vitamins and nutrients and all those things that we need. And yet, that's not why they wanted the apple tree. They wanted the apple tree because it looked pretty. Some of you know where I'm going. The church was created so that we could help people come to a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. The church is created to produce disciples. But some people want their church to look pretty. Some people want their church to be convenient. Some people want their church to fit the mold of what makes them most comfortable. The life that God has raised me to is a life where I can go and worship the way I want, at the time that I want, in the location that I want, so I can feel good when I walk out of there. The only problem with that is that it's not biblical. The purpose of our worship is not to make me feel good, it's to offer worship to the one that is worthy of worship. The purpose of service is not so that I feel good about myself. It's so that I can show people in my community what the hands and feet of God look like. And he gives this example to the disciples. He says, look, there's some people that claim to be followers of mine, and all they're doing is trying to take advantage of those people around them, like the money changers that were in the temple. Says there's other people who are followers of mine, or at least claim to be, but really what they want is, as long as what I'm doing fits the mold of what they want, then they're okay with it. Jesus did not come for either of those things. Jesus came to prepare the kingdom. Jesus came so that you could find hope and so that I could find hope. Jesus came to let us understand that there was no longer a war that had to be fought with sin. There was no longer a war that had to be fought with the grave, because he would come and win absolute victory over both of them. And on this day that he enters into Jerusalem, he is laying the groundwork to walk through the week, to teach in the temple, to teach in the streets, to heal, to love, to care, to gather with his disciples and explain to them one last time what his sacrifice would look like when he broke bread and poured out a cup. He would then be arrested on charges that were totally false. He would then be taken to a midnight trial under the cover of darkness so that people could accuse him of things that were not true. He then would be taken to a Roman governor of the area so that this sentence of death could be carried out in the way that needed to be in the age that they were in, because the Jewish people were not in control. They were under the authority of the Romans. And that Roman governor even realized, this is ridiculous. This man has not done what you said. And yet they called out for the blood of Jesus. In fearing an insurrection of the people, Pilate says, fine, then I wash my hands of it. You do what you want to do. He was beaten. He was bloodied. He was nailed to a cross and hung on display so that people could mock him. And throughout all of it, he did it because of his love for you and for me. He did it so that he could show what it means to be raised to life, because he did not stay on that cross. He was put in a tomb, but he did not stay in the tomb. He only borrowed it for a few days, because on that third day, that day that we will celebrate next week, he rose from the dead. He was raised to life, and he promises us that we can be raised to life from death. But the life that he wants to raise us to is not the life that we choose. It's the life he gives. And I want you to know the life he gives is so much better than any life you could ever choose. You might choose a life of ease. You might choose a life of comfort. You might choose a life of your preferences. But I want you to know God's preferences are so much better than ours. God's preferences are so incredible. And what he may ask of you for a short time will seem like nothing in the span of eternity. When I think of Zoe and her desire to be a part of student choir, months when you're a fifth grader feels like an eternity. For some of us that have lived 5, 6, 7 decades, does month seem like an eternity anymore? Seems like a blink. And if we think it's a blink, can you imagine what it's going to look like in the scope of eternity? God may ask things from you in the life that he gives you that in the moment seem hard, that in the moment seem like a sacrifice, that in the moment seem difficult, but I want you to know it is all for his glory. I want to be a tree that produces figs. I want to be a servant of God in the temple that brings him honor, not dishonor, as he raises us to life, because he has conquered death.